We have a voicemail number. That number is 219-2-DAVID-P. We got a voicemail from our old friend Eric from Mass, and he is moving on from anti-vax to anti-trans, and he makes some claims that don't make any sense that I actually want to spend some time talking about. Listen to this. They're about trans kids and gay kids.
Hey, David, it's Eric from Mass. That was a funny video. Gay children, trans children. There's no such thing. Yeah, think back when you were a kid. No such thing as gay children, trans children.
What do you mean?
That's an adult-themed thing. Maybe 16. Were you running around, you're gay, were you running around sleeping with kids when you were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? I mean, or girls, maybe if you tried that once or twice? Doubt it. No such thing as gay children or trans children. It's ridiculous. You always move the goalposts. Next it'll be, they're trying to do gay babies now. Trans babies, 3-year-old transition.
Okay. So I happen to be heterosexual. I happen not to be gay, but I knew that at quite an early age. My gay friends who I've talked to about this say, oh no, I knew that I was gay when I was very young. Most of them say 5 or 6. And I think as I think back, I think I knew I was heterosexual at age 5 or 6. At least that's as far back as I can remember. Eric from Mass seems to think that the sort of default status for everyone is heterosexuality, and at age and cisgender gender identity, meaning that your gender identity just it aligns with your biological sex at birth until age 16. And suddenly, 16th birthday, you go, oh, you know what? Actually, I'm gay. Actually, I'm trans. And of course, this is ridiculous. Now, there's a separate question, which is a legitimate question about what age limits should there be on certain aspects to transition. When we're talking about medication versus surgical versus, there are all sorts of realistic and practical good faith questions that should be explored by the medical community about that. Much like, as I say many times, I don't think I have the answers when it comes to trans sports on every sport and any situation. I'm not pretending to have the answer, but what I do know is that the bathroom fear mongering is actually nonsense. What I do know is that everyone should be treated with respect. What I do know is that calling somebody by a different name that they want to be called or using different pronouns is really no big deal one way or the other. And it almost is boring to me. And what I mean by that is when I say it's boring, sometimes people misunderstand what I say. I don't mean that I don't care about the plight of folks whose identity isn't being respected or recognized by society. That's not what I mean. What I mean is there are so many other issues that I actively believe we need to work on. Inequality, wages, climate change, education, etc. That having to talk about what pronoun someone wants to go by or whether they're going to wear a dress or whatever, it's just such a distraction. It's not a distraction to advocate for people to be treated properly. And so I want to make clear that I'm making a distinction there. But this, unfortunately, this view that Eric presents here, when it is believed, it leads to unfortunate treatment of people. And this was an issue, I remember back in the days, when I would interview the Westboro Baptist Church people, this is like over 10 years ago now. And gay marriage was like the big battle line on issues of sexual orientation and gender. You had this argument, people are either born gay or it is a choice. That was often the dichotomy. And what underlied that argument was often that some folks asserted, if it's a choice, we should be able to treat LGBT people like crap because they're merely choosing that, sort of like you might choose to be goth or whatever the case may be. And what was often lost there was even if it were a choice for which there is no evidence, but even if any of these things are choices, why would we treat anyone like crap? Why would we discriminate against anybody as a society? It still doesn't make any sense. And that's much of what underlies this sort of thing with people like Eric from Mass and others, which is if they think if they can convince society that all of these identities are merely things that people choose in their teens, either for attention or because they believe it's mental illness or whatever, then as a society, we would be free to treat these folks terribly. And that's maybe the saddest part of it all, because we shouldn't be treating anybody like crap, I think is the takeaway that I want to go to. So another disturbing voicemail from Eric from Mass that serves as an insight into what is malfunctioning in the brains of many of these anti-trans people. We've got a great bonus show for you today. I can't wait for it. Target has decided to remove some of their Pride Month merchandise after receiving threats. Yeah, they seem to be capitulating. Secondly, social media is driving the teen mental health crisis, the Surgeon General is warning, as if we didn't already know that, but we have even more data now that we're going to look at. I'm actually going to tell people about now having a baby, even though we're nowhere near this phase. I have been thinking a lot about what is my policy going to be on social media and smartphone use. And Cal Newport has an interesting episode about this on his podcast recently. Jonathan Haidt has talked about it. A lot to talk about. And lastly, there is a new survey whose results are surprising to some, which finds that veterans are less likely to support extremist movements of any kind. There's often the assumption that military vets are more extreme politically, but the survey suggests something different. We're going to look at it. Of course, it looks at averages. All of those stories and more are on today's bonus show, which I invite you to access by signing up at joinpakman.com or making a pledge on Patreon at patreon.com/The David Pakman Show. Bonus show coming up today. New show tomorrow. We'll do the aftermath of the DeSantis announcement and so many other things.